So.
Level C, is that how you say your name?
Actually, Levalese, but if you want to call me Lise, you can.
Lise. Well, that's a lot easier, I guess.
Yeah, I think for most people. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you, Lise?
I'm
Good to
very
see
well.
you here.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, Vince. Yeah.
I love to see new faces. An almost new face is Hannah. Hanny.
Hannah, I would like to be called Hannah.
Okay, that comes out more easily.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So I'll just remind those of you who already know, but also for oh, you know what? I've already forgotten what you said, Lise.
What did I say?
What to call you?
Oh, Lise. Lise.
Lise. Yeah, Liz. Lise. Okay. This anyway for your benefit, because it's your first time here. This is really informal. No requirements to be polite. Swear all you like. Don't wait. Don't put your hand up if you've got something to say. Just jump in. You know, we occasionally talk over each other, but it always sorts itself out. So don't worry about that. So just nice and relaxed. Be spontaneous. Be authentic with yourself. That's the big one. And let's see what happens.
Is it recorded?
It is recorded, this one, and it will get posted publicly. But if you feel at all sensitive, you just say so, and I'll stop the recording until you've finished. But what I've discovered over doing this for the last few years is that even though we've only got what we've got here, 2, 4, 6, 8 or 9 people here, 80 or 100 people will look at the video, and I get constant feedback about the value they get from watching it. That's the main reason why I do put it publicly. And I would have to say, if you're self-conscious about being recorded, that's something to work on. But at the same time, I respect that. And I'm happy to, as I say, to pause the video while you talk if that's what you want. Yeah, no worries. But I do just I'll mention this. I do every Friday morning here, which is Thursday evening or Thursday afternoon in a lot of the country, a lot of the world. We do have a meeting where it's not published publicly, and this is an issue, and there's some changes in the wind about this. So I'm actually going to do another. I'm going to turn one of these groups into a private group as well. So that's just on the horizon, still being organised, that one. So yeah, let us know about all this, what you feel about it. If you feel concerned about it being public, let me know. It's always a big issue. I want everybody to be happy, and I want the majority of people that the more people that get value from it, the better. And as I say, there's 4 times as many people will watch the video as than those who attend. So yeah, that's my motivation. Try and reach as many people as possible with this stuff because it's so basic and it's so human, yet it's quite rare. it's, it's you don't you don't often get the chance to be as authentic in normal social situations as you will here. Anyway, I don't want to yap too much. So tell us, just fill us in a little bit, Les. Where are you on this path, this so-called spiritual path?
Is this me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I started out a long time ago now. I read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Mhm.
And then it was kind of a bit early, I think, for me to read that. I didn't kind of get so much out of it, but then I went back to it later. Um, I also, one of our friends was an Australian Hindu nun, and she used to run classes on spirituality. So my husband and I used to go to those. Unfortunately, she's passed away. And then I was involved for quite some time with a UK group. And then that changed because the leader decided that she'd become a mace. I can't think of the word. Practitioner, yeah, a mace practitioner. So she was kind of out of doing what she was doing. And but then there were about 3 or 4 from those classes that I went to in the UK that started up like just our own Zoom get together. And one of the lasses in that told me about this group because I hadn't heard of it. I didn't realize that here I am in Australia. I hadn't realized there was anything in Australia that I could join. So yeah.
Right. Right. Oh well, that's probably you and me are probably the only Australians here, actually.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, that's great. Yeah. So whereabouts in Australia are you?
Bendigo, Victoria.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Where are you up Sydney way, are you?
I'm up north of Newcastle. Yes, I'm on Port Stephens Bay in
Oh
a
yeah.
little village called Lemon Tree Passage.
Oh, lovely.
So, yeah. Yeah, so welcome. All right. So that's a bit of your history you told me, but that's not really what I asked you. What I want to know is where are you up to in yourself on this stuff?
Well, I suppose I'm trying really hard. I need it, like always, a reminder to stay in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So a few of the videos I watched on YouTube reminded me of yours to stay in the present. I thought that was really good. Um, and I know that yeah, that we're one. We're not a separate self. And we're not our thoughts, we're the awareness behind the thoughts. So that kind of stuff. I mean, I've still got a long way to go, of course, but
Yeah. Now it sounds to me like that's knowledge that you've picked up on the way, eh?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So what I want to do is turn that knowledge into experiencing. I want you to experience those things, not just have stories about them in your head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's it. Yeah. Great. Great. All right. So you've seen a couple of videos of this stuff
yes,
online, have you?
yeah. A few of them
Well,
turned into yeah,
there you go. That's one of the reasons why they get published, for exactly that. So
yeah,
hopefully more people will do that. So that's good. So you got an idea of what we're about when
yeah.
you've done that. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Very welcome. Pleased to see you. Yeah. Yeah. So Hannah, tell me if anything is different in your experience from last week. Did we poke the bear at all last week?
Last week, I think last week I was first, I was on for the first time, and I was a new person being asked all the questions and hoping that I answered okay. I yeah, I felt a bit tested in a way. I talked it over with the lad very sorely, but I also I felt it was difficult for me. I was enormously tired afterwards because I took it in very very much here and now, and then I also noticed some things that I wondered about, and I've already talked with my guide. But I wondered when you use the word selfing a lot and triggers. So after the session, I thought maybe I should start to notice what triggers me. And then I realized that just about everything triggers me.
Yes, great,
Yes.
great, yeah.
So I immediately dropped the project of writing down.
Good stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that comes to mind that's really that's great. I love that. Do you you notice something that you didn't used to notice before? That is huge. That is a really, really big thing. Now, it's really important that you get that the fact that you're triggered, being triggered, isn't the issue.
No.
And at this stage for you, noticing that that's happened is the really, really big thing. And more than that, simply noticing them is what will change them.
Yes.
Yeah, so before when you weren't noticing, they were automatic and they never got looked at, and so the old habits just continued on. Now that you notice them, whoa, they're going to change, and you don't have to do anything about it. You definitely do not want to do anything about it, other than simply notice them. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to say something else that's a bit obvious from what you said. Well, it's obvious to me, but it may not be to you, and that is you can't bugger it up. You can't go wrong. There are no wrong answers
Mhm.
because we're not this is not a test. What we're about is noticing what happens so that our experience can be more in tune with what is actual.
Yeah.
That's really where we're headed, and we can't get there by making it happen, but noticing when it doesn't happen is what will allow it to happen. Forget, there is no test to pass. There is no wrong answers. There is you can't bugger it up no matter what you do. So
Okay.
be relaxed about that.
I will. Mm.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And it's great that you have questions. If you come up with questions like what selfing is, I mean, I guess I've been saying these things for so long that I forget that maybe other people don't really know what I'm referring to. So if I say selfing, I'm talking about a self-referential
Yes. Yes.
something. Yeah, it might start with a thought, but really what we're looking for is the feeling of ownership, the feeling of belonging that is attached to that thought. And that's what we call identification. And when we express that, we'll call that selfing.
Yeah.
But we get
Mhm.
better and better at picking that as we go along too. So yeah, again, be relaxed about it. It's not wrong. And when we
No.
do it, we certainly don't want to be saying, don't do it. That's just not the right way to go about it. What we want to be saying is, oh, isn't that curious that that turned up? I wonder what it's about. That's what we want. And that's as
Mhm.
far as we want to go most of the time, because that's what will open up to invite it to reveal to us whatever it is that's going on. The moment we try and hunt it down, it's like a dog you're trying to catch that doesn't want to be caught. You'll never catch it no matter what. It'll always be one step ahead of you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Invite it. Be like the be like the person with bird seed in your hand, wanting the birds to come up and
Mhm.
get that. And you've got to be really, really still, and you've got to be really feeling full of love, and then they might come close. That's what we want. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, I noticed that the easiest way for me to be here and now, uh, the the best way is being in nature, singing and dancing.
Yes. Yeah.
Then I'm totally here and now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nature is exceptionally good
Yes.
to offer us offer us the opportunity to experience it, and and I don't want to be talking too much, but I want to say a lot of people when they go into nature, these mythical others, those people, they go into nature and they hear a bird sing, and their mind immediately says, "Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? It's a bird." And
Mm,
they're relating to this story they've got in their head about it being a bird and how a bird song is really lovely, or what they see, the plants and so on, and they go, "Oh, that's really lovely. That's really," but they're often not actually seeing it or actually hearing it. And so the practice that I suggest for you is that using the example of the sound a bird might make out in nature is to practice hearing the sound. This is going to sound weird. Hearing the sound as a feeling, looking beyond the label of bird or whistle or sound or whatever, and just experience what that sound does to your body.
yes,
That's the magic that we're aiming towards with what in Liberation Unleashed they call that direct experiencing. So
yes,
it's a beautiful one that we open ourselves up to by that. So recognize that labels just give us a direction in which to look or focus, but then they're limiting if we stay with them. We've got to go beyond the label to the experience. And that takes practice.
yes.
That's a good one, yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
And it's this when we have silence, that is a great opportunity to practice that same thing. What is happening for us in that silence? Is our mind hunting for something to be busy with? Are we aware of our body? Are we aware of our breathing? Are we aware of the sounds in our environment? So it's always a wonderful opportunity for some kind of meditation. But really, I'm just waiting for somebody to say something.
We're probably trying to think of something to say.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and I like that, like the direct experience and how it is for your body. Yeah, I really like that.
I'd say that's where the magic comes from for me in my experience every day in pockets, in little moments. It happens like that, and it is magical. It's just so beautiful. You feel your heart just getting bigger and expanding out beyond the body.
Hmm.
Well,
It's
that
very,
makes me think. Sorry, go,
sorry.
Lisa.
No, you go, you go. Okay.
Um, I was going to say I was out in nature last night, and it was kind of just after sunset, and the colours were so just so interesting on the just the greens with the odd flower in it, wildflower in the hedges. And I was just, so taken by it. And then this feeling comes that's quite familiar is I want to share it, I want to capture it, I want to make it into a piece of art, I want to take a photograph. And, you know, and that's kind of, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. I write music, I write songs, and I've got a bit more time in my life now. I haven't had much time for that recently, and now I have got time, and I'm kind of a bit confused about my motivation around that. And I suppose with a lot of things, it it seems like it can be a kind of spontaneous impetus, and then the ego can kind of hijack it maybe and see it as an opportunity to, to try and impress people or to try and get attention or something. And I find it, so I'm kind of waiting until it feels like it's just flowing out of me, and there's no kind of trying to push it or.
Yeah, I get that. So that the trap with that kind of stuff is to say, I can see that happening and it shouldn't happen.
Hmm.
The I don't know, I haven't got the right word, the ability I was going to say, but if it happens that it occurs and you see it happen and you go, oh, that's ego, right? You go, oh, there you go. Look at that. Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
And that's all that's required to change it. The moment you get sucked into that trap of saying it shouldn't be here, you're off down the wrong track, and you're just going to make it stronger. Because guess who's saying it shouldn't be here? The ego. So it's a bit of a vicious circle. Yeah. And the other one that you mentioned that is great. It's a perfect segue. You are just enthralled by what you saw in nature, and then this desire, this impulse arises to want to capture it. We've got to photograph it. We've got to paint it. We've got to share it. All of that stuff. That's what I call making something out of nothing. That's your mind wanting to turn it into a doing, an achieving. You want to capture it. It's like shooting the elephant instead of just photographing it. That's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean. It's like trying to instead of just going, oh wow, 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 wow. You know what? Just being lost in it can
Mm.
almost be painful. It can be so exquisite that it gets a bit uncomfortable. And that may be why the mind jumps in to save you from that and says, "Oh, let's do something with it. Let's get the phone out and take a picture, or whatever." So, yeah, a couple of opportunities there. That's all.
It could also be worth investigating if there is um, a pull to share or make something out of nothing to share with other people because dot dot dot. So what would like is there a pull to perhaps get some recognition, some validation, some attention,
Yeah.
or not? But it's
No, yeah,
worth looking at.
definitely that is part of, well, that can be there. I don't know if it's hard to tell kind of which comes first. Sometimes it feels like, Well, there's two things. There's the nature, something in nature, and then there's the musical idea. I think they're a bit different, and there's some things in common. But with nature, I think the first thing is, wow, this is amazing. Isn't it like remarkable? I want to share this moment with somebody else, I think, or I want other people to have this experience, to appreciate it. And then
That's
it can go,
beautiful.
yeah, that's quite a nice one. And then I think the kind of shoulds can come behind that. Oh, this could be an opportunity to be impressive, or to, to win some approval of some kind.
You could experiment with just staying in the gap of the impulse. Don't take up your phone, just notice the impulse, and then look at it,
Yeah,
investigate it.
yeah, I think that's a nice idea. As Vince was saying, it can almost be in those moments of awe. It can almost be kind of painful, and that's a nice thing to make a bit of space for. I'd like to do that, and then, like you say, whatever comes after that.
And it's probably also more obvious, and I do see the similarity between that and you're making music, what I imagine is a similarity. And it occurs to me that if you're a musician who is making music for a living, you're constantly you constantly look at what's happening, what you're producing from the perspective of an audience.
Mm.
Whereas if you're just making music, in the beginning, it may be that you just look at it from your own perspective. But one would hope that very quickly you'll get lost in it to the point where you're not looking at it, but you are indeed yourself the music. You know, that's a pretty big jump, maybe, but that is possible. You will not be making music, not even you will the music come out of you, but rather you will be the expression that we call music.
Mm.
And then when that happens, there'll be zero attention, at least primary attention. It might be happening in the background, but there'll be no primary attention about what others will think of it. It'll be purely an expression of something. Again, beyond the labels. It won't be music. It'll be sound production that will feel good. Yeah. Great opportunities, incredible opportunities. If you're producing it from that, how can I put it, that depth, that deep part of you, you can guarantee that others some others, not everybody, of course, but some others will really enjoy that as well.
Mm. I think it generally seems, well, when it's like about composing something, I think the first, or one of the early phases of it is, as you say, just, it's I don't know, it's something quite pure that's kind of happening, coming through. Uh, but then at some point, you kind of have, I think, you kind of have to go into the left brain to, organize it and structure it, or maybe, or,
Yeah,
record
yeah.
it or something, you know. And I think navigating those two phases, and in some ways it's just really nice to stay in just the pure, oh, here's a lovely idea, now it's gone, and that in a way that's the most beautiful thing. But then it's like, oh, but now it's gone, and was that like some kind of gift from the universe that it's my role to transmit, or I don't know, it's a story, but it sometimes feels like that,
Mm.
uh, but then going into the left brain, some people say, well, you've just got to do that. That's part of being a musician. You can't just stay in the
Oh,
amorphous
yeah,
world.
I get that. I get that. You've got to commercialize it if you want to sell it.
Yeah,
But
or,
but if it's based on that other thing, it's going to be different if it starts out from a commercial perspective and stays there all the way. That's totally different. But yeah.
I think at the minute, or these last few days, I've been enjoying so much practicing just being present with whatever's arising. Um, and maybe, I guess that's just where I'm at. Um, like I've got a kind of a whole day today, and I thought, oh, I might make some music, I might do some recording or something. But I just don't feel like I want to get out of the just being in a bit of a more of a flowy
Yep,
state.
yep, I get that. And at some point you might experiment with how you can take one state into the other. So you can take that flowy state into your music or not, but it's always a possibility to
It's a
just
nice idea.
experiment. Yeah. And they're really, and this brings me, this is another segue here. It brings me to this place where we recognize that we don't really have choices about this. We don't make a decision and then do it. The decision's made before we become aware of it. So really, let's just relax and allow whatever happens to happen. Let life say, play music, don't play music, watch the sunset, whatever. Let life do that. Circumstances will. So it's another practice, another possibility of practicing, and and you might describe it as being in the now, but it's not coming because you're telling yourself to be in the now.
Hmm. Sorry, could you say that again, Vince? I don't know if I got that.
I've already forgotten what I said.
Some last bit about, I don't know.
Remind me.
Uh,
So what did you think I said? And we'll go from there.
uh, can I even remember that?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I just finished saying it, and I have no idea what I said. It just nothing got put away. Yeah.
I can share something that came up while listening to Vince. Um, you know, you don't, whatever Vince or whatever I or anybody else in this group would say to you, um, ultimately you don't need any of that because there's something inside you that is uh, guiding you to do what you need to do anyways. So you can hear some messages through other people, but ultimately the lessons that you need to learn is is inside, and um, learning to trust that, listen to that, I think is is the most important thing we all can learn. So whatever you end up doing, it's probably not because of something we said, but something that felt natural in that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just something that I frequently say that to expand on that, every experience we have changes us. And it's not because we remember what anything about it. It just changes us. Fundamentally, if we take it in and it resonates, something's different from that moment on. And to trust that is really, really valuable.
And that seems to be a process in itself. So it's not something you can do, but something you can recognize might start happening.
Mhm.
And the great thing about these groups is if that seed didn't germinate, don't worry, come back and we'll throw some more out. One day they'll germinate.
So there's always like an opportunity to repeat something, that it'll come back later and you will cotton on to it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, you may have
Another
experienced,
opportunity. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you hear the same thing again and again and again, and then one day it clicks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, yeah.
I just wonder if you take it in and you take it in several times, and one day it comes back. And then it is, I begin to wonder, then it has been around the brain and it has been around language, and it isn't anymore just experiencing. That's a place where I do get lost.
hmm. Yeah, it's amazing because I was having a rave to somebody recently about change. I remember now who, and anyway, they were saying, "Well, I haven't changed," and I'm saying the change is like watching grass grow. You know, no matter how close you look at it, you can't see anything happening. But yet, if you go back in a couple of days, all of a sudden you recognise that it's longer. It's grown, it's changed. Well, that's the way we change. We change like the grass grows, and we don't recognize that we're changing because it's so subtle when it happens. It's only by comparing it to something that we can actually recognize that we've changed. And that doesn't happen here anymore. I just don't remember anything in order to measure it against something. So that's not necessary. It's only if we want to confirm that we've changed, would we even bother with that? And I would say it's a waste of time, but anyway. But you're never going to notice the grass growing, no matter how closely you look at it. And you're never going to see yourself actually changing. You only know that you have changed. That's all. Yeah. So if you recognize that every experience changes you, oh, there's a feeling of relaxation and something where you just let that, you just swim in that fact that that's happening all the time. Every second of every moment of every day, there is that constant movement of change going on in you. And it's just wonderful when if you get into what's going on right now, it's almost always really good. Even if you hit yourself on the thumb with a hammer and it's hurting, if you get really right into it, the rest of your body can be in a perfect shape. It's only the thumb that's hurt, that tiny little bit that's hurting. But who knows, you know? But getting into the here and now without doing it, just sinking into it, can be an amazing, amazing place to be. Yeah, it's like that's where the sunset's going on all the time. All those colours are really happening there in you all the time. It's just a case of noticing them.
What happens if they're not good experiences?
They're opportunities then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess Les, you because you've not been around here very much, it's something that constantly comes up. Good and bad stories that we put on top of things. Right? There's no actual good or no actual bad. It's just the way we think of things that you call good and bad. And if you talk about experience, you might say, oh, that's unpleasant. So there's unpleasant and pleasant.
Yeah.
Right? And when you look at it that way, it's kind of easy to see that they're both experiences, and unpleasant and pleasant aren't as different as you used to imagine they were. But if they're unpleasant, then you can go, oh, okay, what's going on here? Isn't it interesting that this unpleasant thing has turned up? And then that's picture yourself with birdseed in your hand, sitting in the garden waiting for the birds to come up and take some birdseed out of your hand. With that kind of attitude, the reason for the unpleasantness might, just might, reveal itself to you. But we could, but that's a big area. We can talk a lot more about that as time goes on. But so you asked me from a theoretical point of view, not because you were actually experiencing something unpleasant, I guess. Um, so what I say is when things are unpleasant, there's an opportunity to discover what mechanism have been ingrained in you, what conditioning has produced in you. Why is that unpleasant experience there? Almost certainly there's going to be stories involved. And when you look at those stories, they usually, frequently, just fall apart. They just don't have any credibility in reality when we look at them. They only have credibility because we keep away from them. And so what we generally do when an unpleasant situation turns up is we try very hard to get out of it, to change it. We certainly normally don't take responsibility for it. And that's a shitty phrase. Don't hold me to that. We'll come back to that if you like. But we don't look inwards. We look outwards. We say it's out there, those circumstances, those people. That's why I feel this way. Well, that's just a distraction from feeling this way. And when we are prepared to look inwards and see what's actually going on, that changes.
Mm. Mm. Thanks.
It's something that if I could give you a gift, it would be to experience that. And then all of a sudden you'll go, unpleasant equals interesting, not something to be fixed or finished or chased away or avoided, but just interesting. What's actually going on? And that changes your whole world when there's no good or bad. There's
Yeah.
just this. Yeah.
Yeah. Understand that.
Mm. I want you to experience it, not just understand it. But that's something that will happen or not. Yes. But
Well,
understanding is the
I
first
have
step
ex-
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I have experienced it, but it's not something I. I mean, I don't know anyone here. It's not something I can kind of. I feel would comfortable talking about it, but
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's one of the things that happens at these groups. You can talk about that stuff. You can't talk about it in your social life. You can't talk about it with your family because they just think you're weird. But let's face it, you've been weird all your life, haven't you?
I say so, yeah.
Great. I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, how many of your friends would have enthusiastically taken your Eckhart Tolle book and read it when you first read it? It's the kind of thing that they would go, "What? What's this stuff?"
Yeah, no, I think a couple of people just thought it was a lot of frog shit, you know? Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
So it's nice to talk to people who are on the same wavelength. I think I like that.
Oh, absolutely. And it deepens it. It's not a good word, but you know what I mean. To be able to talk about it like that brings it to life, makes it more valid, makes it more concrete, does wonderful things to be able to do that. In fact, that was the whole reason I started these groups in the first place, was because I just felt people got abandoned when they had a shift, saw that there was no self, and then had to go back to their family and couldn't talk about it. And it was, well, I just felt so sad even thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that no good and like no bad, just pleasant or unpleasant. Yeah, that's better. Better way of expressing it. Better feeling.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think the Buddhists probably originally came up with this idea of a first arrow and second arrow, and the first arrow is when you hit your thumb with the hammer, and the second arrow is when you call yourself an idiot and say you shouldn't have done it. That's where the suffering comes from. It's all about the stories, and good
Yeah,
and bad and all of that are all the stories that create suffering.
very true. And it's often what you're telling yourself that's causing the suffering. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So have you had the realization, Les, that there is no self running the show?
No, I think it's kind of a bit hazy. Yeah.
Right. So it's not a realization as yet, but there's it's something that you've bumped up against, eh?
I have. I'm kind of not. Yeah. I think it needs to be explained to me again or a bit more, or maybe there's no explanation. It's just something you
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, explaining is kind of how the experience happens sometimes, but yeah, we've got to go past just transferring knowledge or information to you about that.
Well,
Yeah.
you have to be able to understand it though, don't you, really?
Well, it makes sense, of course. Yes. Yeah. And
Mm.
and and when it resonates for you, that's when you know you're having an experience of it. That resonation. Is that a word? Resonation? But you know what I mean. Yeah.
So who's running the show?
Ah, well, that's always the question people ask, isn't it?
Who's running the
I
show?
I I I have no idea. Nobody. um, the story I have developed, and I recognise it as a story, but it's a good story, is that things happen because all of the circumstances and conditions that are currently present are all the necessary ones are there, and they're all lined up. And the consequence of that is that it enables this current happening to occur.
Yeah, I get that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not running it.
No. And we know that your brain will, is the computer, if you like, that runs through all of those current circumstances and so on, and then it also digs back into its history, and from past experience, it will add that to the circumstances, and then it will come up with what it considers to be an appropriate response, and then it will inform you. Then it will come to your consciousness. You will then be notified, but sometime after the brain has come to that conclusion. They've measured that in MRI machines and so on, and there's a significant, sometimes seconds, delay from when the brain has made up its mind to when you become aware of what the brain says.
Okay.
That's a tricky one, that one, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah, do a Google search for that, and you'll see there's quite a few psychological studies that have shown that to be the case.
okay. Hmm.
So just to ask the question who or what is running the show implies that somebody or something is running the show. And you can easily see how people get sucked into the religious idea that there's some greater intelligence organising things. Um, and of course, that's just a great story that gives people a sense of security. There's no answer. So what I say to people when I'm guiding somebody with this stuff is I say that if you and a dog and a frog and a cricket all stand next to each other and look at a tree, you're going to see it the way that's familiar to you. The dog's going to see it in less colours. The frog will only see the movement, and the cricket will see it in, I think, the ultraviolet frequencies, right? So everybody will have a totally different view of the same thing. Are any of them more right than the other? So what I say to you is that we can imagine that there's some absolute out there, but we have no idea what it is. We have the puny human faculties, the senses and the brain are not capable of knowing what it actually is. All we know is our interpretation of it. Just as the dog has its interpretation of it. So it's the absolute, none of our business. Why bother to even think about it? We simply can't comprehend it. If it exists, we don't know that it exists. It may or may not. Quantum physics would have something to say about whether it actually does or not, but who knows? Doesn't matter. Hi, Phoebe. So how did that hit you, Les? How did you go with that one? Does that make sense to you?
Oh, that kind of it does make sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm really kind of thinking like it's not like the self running the show. It's like circumstances that, and I can see that in my case, it's circumstances that have kind of lined up.
Hmm. We still live with once we're no longer uh, a slave to the delusion that we have to make decisions and achieve things and that we are in control and can actually do that. Once that delusion is broken, we're still left with an illusion. Right? It still seems like we still behave as if we have control, but we know that it's not really the way things are. And that consequence will remove all of the guilt and shame that will come from not behaving the way you were supposed to behave.
Uh,
And blame.
Mm.
Usually we're so caught up in thinking about ourselves in that equation, but it's equally liberating to let go of the blame that we hold of others.
It's become so in our society, I guess, that almost the first line of diffusion, deflection, distraction from those unpleasant feelings is to blame somebody or something outside of us. And if we can't find a person, we'll blame the government.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit what happened, and it's kind of sound really petty, probably bore everybody, but that's all right too. There were a couple of look, I can't think how I noticed it at first, but I thought there were a couple of neighbors I didn't know very well, like living around the next street, who were avoiding my husband and me. And I actually thought, no, they're avoiding my husband because he tends to talk too much and he probably delays people or kind of keeps them too long if he says hello to them. So I'm thinking it's my husband, okay. And then what happened, my husband wasn't about. And then it was brought to my attention by their reactions that they were avoiding me, and that kind of really shocked me. It was all right to think it was my husband, but then me thinking it was me, I thought, oh, wow. And then, of course, you start thinking, oh, I wonder why they're doing that. And you think of something that kind of, well, happened over 20 years ago. And you think, oh, maybe that's got around and maybe they don't like me and they don't want to talk to me. And then I think, oh well, this is what I think. Um, if they're talking about me, well, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe I can cope with it than some other person that they might be talking about. So I kind of was thinking like that. So anyway, look, I don't really know. I haven't like come to any conclusions, but makes me feel a bit off.
There you go. There's an opportunity for you, eh?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You could write them a thank you card and send it around for getting that stuff going in you, because there's definitely something to look at. Yeah. So the reality, of course, is you've got no idea what's going on for them.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but I can imagine,
Yeah,
something.
but that doesn't matter. What you also imagine is that they're responding to you, that it's something about you or your husband, but it was
Definitely, no, it's
different when
me.
it was you. Yeah.
It's definitely
Um,
me.
and so that's telling you something about yourself.
Yeah.
Now you don't say what. Now that's because then you're on the hunt. You see, what you've got to do is be that person sitting in the garden with the bird seed in your hand. What you need to do is be really, really gentle with yourself and invite whatever's going on to show itself. If you go hunting it, you'll never catch it. It'll always be a step ahead of you. So looking at what is it that goes on for you when you feel that? So the technique that you might find useful is ignore the stories about what it might be. Just push them into the background. They're there. You can't stop them from being there, but just push them into the background and look at what is it that you're feeling in your body. What are the sensation components of the feeling? Okay, this is an opportunity for me to say again, a feeling is sensation with stories hanging off it. An emotion, sensation plus stories. So forget the stories, just push them into the background and look at what is the sensation component of that feeling. How are you feeling when you think about them talking about you or avoiding you? Right? There's going to be some discomfort.
Hmm.
Where is it? Is it in your chest, in your shoulders, in your neck, in your head, in your stomach? What part of the body is it in? What does it feel like? And as you focus on that sensation, you're looking to get close to it, not so close that it dissolves. And it will happen. If you get too close, it'll dissolve. It'll go away. Well, you don't want to get that close. You want to stop just before then, so that you're still feeling some of the discomfort, but you're just watching. What's the feeling? And then that's where the birds will come up and start pecking at the seed in your hand. That's when you'll start to recognize what it is. And you'll very likely get images from when you were conditioned to feel, when you were conditioned, when this something occurred to you, probably from the past, probably way back even in your childhood, maybe early day conditioning that said there's something wrong with you. Right? So we're getting a little bit too specific when I say that, but so you're not looking for anything, you're looking at what offers itself to be seen. So that's just something to practice. That's a really good technique, and come back and we'll polish that after you've had some experience with it. Now
All right.
you can, and this is probably a good example, you can do what they say, take it to the lab. So you can just sit somewhere when you're by yourself and think of them avoiding you. And that you'll get that feeling, that discomfort will start to appear. And so you can then do exactly that. You don't even need to be in the actual situation anymore. Just thinking about it will be enough to get that feeling going.
I hadn't thought about doing that. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mm.
Watch this space.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, well done. And when you hear me say that's an opportunity, that's what I mean. These are opportunities to discover things about ourselves.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I love it. I love it. It's great. Mm.
Well, I've got an opportunity. I have I moved to the area I live in now about 11 years ago, and I met a couple within the year that became close friends, and they're both therapists, and they ran a group on A Course in Miracles, and I got really close to them, and they introduced me, Laurel introduced me to Rupert Spira, and I did 8 retreats with Rupert Spira. And then she introduced me to Pernille.
Right.
And yeah. So these are like enlightened,
Yeah.
great people. So I get an email from Jim about a week ago, 10 days ago, and he's like, this is urgent. This is a must watch. And it's a Fox video, and it's talking about the deep state. And I'm like, well, first of all, they voted for Trump. So that was a disconnect for me. I was like, I thought I knew these people. Anyway, they voted for JFK, who went to Trump's
Yeah.
side. And that is the one good thing that might come out of Trump being in power, is that if he can actually get the Republicans to look at diet and food additives and sugar, and if there can be a transformation there, that really would almost be worth him being in the position he's in.
Mm.
But my response, and it still comes up now. This morning is just rage. It's and judgment, and he's so naive.
Hey,
So,
Phoebe, do you feel betrayed?
I do feel betrayed. I really thought I knew them.
Yeah.
I thought I knew them. And so what happened was my first response was I sent him a reply immediately. I said, please don't ever send me another email like this. And then about 20 minutes later, I sent him another email and I said, in fact, take me off your list. Please take me off your list. And then he sent back an email saying, I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding. It was just this one segment on children that I thought was so important. And I thought, he's just so naive. He's so fucking clueless. He's so gullible. And I'm holding the mirror up to myself saying, oh, no one is more naive, gullible, or stupid than you are. Like you know. And
Boy, so you started off judging them, and then you turned it around onto yourself.
well, that's the whole thing. Whatever I'm judging in someone else, it's my issue. I mean, I really do. So I'm having breakfast with Laurel tomorrow morning. And I'm like still very conflicted about this whole. I'm very conflicted about.
Dear. So when you get off this meeting, I reckon it'd be a really great idea for you to sit down and write a really short note full of appreciation for the fact that they've shown you this about yourself. What a fantastic thing has happened. It is really, really good, right? The strength of your reaction is phenomenal, isn't it? That was like a volcano going off. The stuff in you was just so big that and how long since you've had the opportunity to see something like this in you? You've been going along pretty well for a long time, I imagine, and all of a sudden this gift turns up to show you that, wow, here's something really big time going on.
All right, I can do that. Because the other thing that I've been aware of for months now is how full of rage I am at everyone. And I think I brought it up here before, especially any kind of mother figure or father figure. I mean, there is such rage there. And so it's the same thing. It's all that's tied in with this. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I get this story in my head that you feel like you've been stuffed back into the cage, and you're not gonna go without a fight.
It's so funny because when that image came out being stuffed back into the cage, what I felt was, and I'm being force fed this shit.
Yes.
And there's nothing I can do about it. I am so powerless.
Yep. And that's what your rage is about, you being powerless, eh?
Yeah.
And your rage is an attempt to stop it from happening. It's a defensive thing, this rage, isn't it? Full on defensiveness. You're like a knight in shining armor with all of the defenses. Every spine on the porcupine is standing upright.
That's right. That's a better image. That's a much better image. Yeah. And then, yeah. And then I also identify with Jim because he's so much like me. He's really looking for approval and validation. And even though he sees himself as being enlightened, I look at him and I think, you're just as lost as anyone else. You're just.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one, isn't it?
And then that brings out compassion. Then I feel like,
It
do you
softens
really
up.
want,
Yeah,
do you want to like trounce this guy? He's
yeah. Oh, look, it's a
picking.
tricky one, isn't it? You know, Trump
Yeah.
triggered me big time the first time he got in, you know, and then the second time I was triggered quite a bit, you know. But since then I've realised, you know what? Here's a great one. Right this moment, today I voted for the federal election in Australia. We had a federal election, and we can thank Donald Trump for the fact that the Conservative Party in Australia got trounced big time.
Right
And it
on.
was
Oh
it was
gosh.
because of Donald Trump that happened.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah. Yeah.
likely, you know. Canada had the
Yeah.
same experience. Their Conservative Party was leading until Donald did his trick, and all of a sudden, pooh, they got trounced. So there's a lot of good things come out of it, and if this food thing happens well, that's great too, you know. Yet there is a lot of shit too, you know. I mean, I can't stand the man. When he opens his mouth, I cringe. I want to turn the television off. I want to
Yeah.
mute it immediately. I don't even like the way he sounds, you know.
Yeah.
I feel
But
like
it's
we're way off in storyland right now.
Yeah.
thank you, Marius. We are, yeah.
I I kind of want to remind us that all of those feelings you were feeling, Phoebe, around that is based on your personal opinion, which is just a construction of your conditioning. And I think it's important to remember that our minds is a story constructor, and it interprets every situation that we're in through this story constructor. And I think that rem- remembering that, remembering that this story that I'm believing right now is not reality. And by remembering that this is not reality, this is just this fantasy land that I've constructed based on all the experiences I've had in my life, then all of that rage and all of that stuff doesn't feel real anymore.
Yeah.
So if you want to be liberated from all of this turmoil, I think that's a good place to start.
Thank you, Marius.
Thank you for bringing it up.
What I find too, as someone who was also very triggered for a long time, for one thing, this is a good opportunity for me to see how it feels when Trump's name comes up, which there's really very little there. But what I've found lately is the more that I'm just in direct experience, like it doesn't even exist. I mean, if I don't turn the TV on, there's just
Mm.
what's here, and it's really quite nice. So, yeah, it is. I agree really wholeheartedly with everything that Marius just said. It's just really easy to get sucked into the stories and to the other thing is that like really the only problem is ever that we think there's a way that things should be. things are just how they are.
And we know that how we think they are is probably not got much to do with how they actually are.
Mm.
It's just our interpretation from our perspective.
feel there's a
And can
certain,
trump or anyone else be what they, other than what they are, you know? Sorry.
I feel there's a certain trickiness to this, which is that everything that's being said right now it can be very, very helpful. It can be very helpful pointers to let go of over-identification. But it's like, it can also, is my sense, my feeling, it can also, it can get us to a place where we behave as if, well, as if all ideas are of, it can bring about some kind of carelessness, right? As if, say, what happens in the world doesn't matter, or as if, say, you want to have something built in your home, it doesn't matter whether you go to an engineer or you go to somebody who has no knowledge of the matter, right? And it does matter. So it's like, I think there's something here that, at least that's the way I'm experiencing and seeing it, is that the wisdom is not in completely relativizing everything, as if every idea has equal value or equal merit under every context. That's, for me, that would be a preliminary pointer to make us to start letting go of ideas. But further down the road is a more precise attunement where you notice when are you getting sticky with an idea? Like, that's the problem. The problem is if we get sticky with ideas. But it doesn't mean that all ideas are kind of just stories in every sense equal and of equal value, and right. And I think where Phoebe started here, I actually think like there's another element to her story, which is she said, I was so surprised, these kind of enlightened people, and then they go and they vote like this or something like that, right? And the fact is, the history of non-duality and awakening is full of that. The history of non-duality and awakening and awakened teachers is stuck full with people supporting the worst causes in history, abusing all kinds of things, and not rarely relating with it as, well, whatever, that's just crazy wisdom, that's all just ideas, and so forth. Right. And so I think there's also a valid learning potential in what you brought up, Phoebe, in us being in one sense awake and clear doesn't necessarily at all means our understanding is very skillful in another particular context.
Yeah.
And where we are going here, at least is not that everything is equally skillful, that there is not such a thing as a skillful political analysis or a skillful psychological understanding and so forth. So it's like, it's this middle path where we want to pay attention if we get too convinced about ideas or too sticky about ideas, but also notice, are we falling into the other hole where we behave as if it's like we lose discernment. We lose discernment and care.
Yeah, so it's not actually about the ideas. The idea is just the carrier. It's your relationship to the ideas where the value is for you.
Yeah.
So like Elad was saying, how sticky it is. And Marius was kind of implying about that too. You know, that if we're lost in the content of the story, then we're way off track. If we just recognize that there is a story and we look at how we relate to that, how sticky it is, how much we own it, where it comes from, things change. I'll bet you those people would probably give you the shirt off their back if you ask for it.
They would. They would.
Yep, yep,
These are two of the most generous people I've ever met.
yeah, yeah,
They really have hearts of gold.
yep, yep.
And that's why it was such a shock that, and I think the reason is they never lived under a dictator. I did. I know what a dictator is because I had a father who was one. And I can spot them a mile off, but they never did.
Yep.
So
I just think you probably just told us why you had such a strong reaction to it. Do you think? At least there's some connection there.
well, yeah, yeah. 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 Well, I've got a thank you letter to write, so I got it.
And you've got one of the biggest hearts I know. And so as you're writing that, that's where it's going to come from, eh? From your heart.
Yeah, yeah,
And you don't have to, it doesn't mean you're condoning that view. Doesn't mean that you agree with it. It doesn't mean anything like that. There's no submission going on. It is just recognizing that we are all really complex people.
yeah,
And that you can be very clear with them that you want to relate to their heart centre, not to their political views. So please don't give them to me.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
going to try and change you, but please don't share them with me. I don't want it. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, thank you. Thank you. This was actually really helpful.
Hmm. How's things going for you, Michelle?
Of insights, I feel like. Um, this week, I feel like I've been noticing a lot of when it seems like I'm in a flow of just what's coming up next and like just kind of doing what comes next and not and then being very it's becoming very clear and obvious when I get in thoughts of projecting too far into the future and then wanting to manage or control or and how uncomfortable then I start to feel when I
So how
notice that.
how far is too far into the future?
Well, I guess that usually depends on when it starts to feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
So it kind of depends what, like so that's the interesting thing when you've talked about in the past, or other people have talked about too, like planning. I'm still not really clear on, like, planning is just happening, except maybe that is what it feels like. If planning is just happening, it feels more like it's in a flow of planning. But then it feels like it starts to get uncomfortable if if something happens where I then am thinking too far into the planning, then it starts to feel uncomfortable. So then I'll just notice, oh, I'm trying to control, and I'm trying to protect myself from something, some painful thing that I think could happen.
Possible, yeah.
And then I'll just try to remind myself of, like, okay, well, that's not happening now, and I don't need to plan for that now. Like, if it's creating discomfort, maybe that means I shouldn't plan for that right now.
So what do you plan for?
Well, like in general, if we're moving, then I'm getting things ready to move. Like, I'm starting to sell
Yeah.
things.
Organizing things. Yeah.
Yeah. Organizing, purging things, like thinking about what might I want to take to the house, getting my cats organized with taking a long trip.
So
Then if
so so would if I said to you, when you find yourself going over and over and over the same thing, does that happen?
not with the kind of day to day, like, like a new thing might come up of, like, oh, I'd like to sell that. I'll post that to
Yeah.
sell it. Or so it might be that seems to be what's happening a lot these days, is that same over and over, still selling things, still
Yeah, yeah.
organizing.
But what I mean is you're not, if you're going to sell that vase, for example, you don't keep thinking about that vase, selling that vase. I wonder how much I'll get for that vase, with all that stuff. It just happens once and then it's done or not done. There's not that compulsive regurgitation that goes on. That's the, kind of planning that can
And I
be.
kind of have timelines of some stuff. It's like, okay, how long am I going to keep this posted before I just donate it?
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, like, I mean, that's kind of a fun thing for me. Like, I like engaging with people that reach out and ask questions about it. And,
mm,
and
yeah,
it's definitely really good to get rid of a bunch
yeah.
of things.
So I don't see any problem with that kind of stuff. Now, let's say you're moving and you plan to, say you think, oh well, I've got to get a removalist, I've got to get a removal truck, and I've got to make sure I take the cat, and I've got the cat food to, say all this is just organising stuff. But at a certain point, you start going, oh, I wonder what it'll be like when I get there. And then you kind of get lost into that ruminations about that kind of thing. That's probably getting, is that what you call planning too far ahead?
No, not necessarily. Like, that has been fun too. Well, funny you should mention that, though. That was something that I noticed this week when I was looking at video a video I took of the house and like photographs of the house. And I found myself getting excited and seeing myself there. And then there was like a quick thought of, well, don't get too excited about all that, and it was just interesting to notice how fear thoughts seem to be justified and like can tend to get on a spiral. But boy, the minute there's like a joy or excitement thought, like something wants to come in and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
wash.
got to stop you from losing that. Don't build it up in case it doesn't work, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which made me think of something. I'm in this group and the topic month was joy. And one of the things that we watched was this interview with Brene Brown and Oprah. And Brene Brown said something about like when the tolerance for vulnerability becomes strong, then joy becomes foreboding. And like that just really hit for me too, that and she gave the example too of like maybe a new mother is loving their child and looking in amazement at it, and then the thought will come, oh my goodness, what if something happens, so there's just such a
Yeah,
condition of the fear of joy, because what if it's taken away? And
yep, yep,
then that like again, being open and vulnerable and yeah, I guess just open a lot, like that's what also allows the joy to come in.
mm,
But the protection of protecting yourself from hurt is also blocks
yeah,
joy. So yeah, with projecting too far in the future then would be like, oh my gosh, okay, so my husband's not coming with me, he's staying here and working. Well, what do we do about that? Like, how long should he keep working? Should he retire? Should he look for another job? Like, then I start kind of spinning with and realize that like, I don't know. I don't know
mm,
what's going to happen with that yet. And so it was interesting with what Elad said too about like the tendency to not want to make a mistake in planning. Like, I don't want to make a stupid financial mistake. And yet at the same time, I'm really getting tired of trying to figure it all out or like try to stay safe.
yep, yeah. Trying to manage it. Yeah,
Yeah, trying to manage it. And just trust that, like, I don't know, like maybe that is a stupid mistake. If, for him to retire, if we really don't have enough money for him to retire, like all this stuff. And it's like, I'm just getting sick of like worrying about it and like thinking that I need to follow like what the rules say about like this is the age you're supposed to retire because you need to do this and you need to do this and have all this stuff all plotted out. And it's like I'm sick of that. Like I'm sick of making like all the society rules dictating the safe way to live.
yeah. Sounds like a jail breakout is about to happen, eh? Yeah. That's why we call it liberation, I think, because we decide that those rules have a place, but it's not. We don't have to blindly obey them. And they don't even
Well,
have a place as rules; they just have a place as guides.
yeah. And trusting that like it'll work out some other way. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be so.
But you can't impose that trust. That's something that you will experience and then it will be there, because really there's no such thing as trust. There's only the absence of distrust that you might label trust. So when you've got suspicion all the time or worry about what might happen, that's mistrust. So that's the thing that's where all that suffering happens, isn't it? Yeah. But if you experience that things just happen in little ways in your life, just watch how your hand brushes your teeth. You know, you don't do it. It just happens automatically. Then that can translate into other things, bigger things. And so the whole idea of moving is that you trust that your brain will take care of the necessary organisation. And once you trust it, you can just let it do it. You don't have to organise it. You don't have to push the river. You can trust that if you take your hand off the tiller, everything will be okay. Because your experience tells you it will be, not because of logic, not because your mind does.
Yeah, that saying's been coming up quite a bit here. I can take my hand off the tiller.
Mm.
And then and then also the thought will also come of like, you haven't been doing it anyway. So
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
I mean, again, it still feels like I have been, but I can still entertain the thought that, I can still have it like it be as a question. Like, well, what if I really haven't been?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and that opens up the possibility to see it, to experience it. Yes. But then what happens in the reality, the way life works, is that you take your hand off, you think, oh, beauty, I don't have to. And then suddenly you realize at some point that you've been doing it again, for the last couple of miles even. And then as soon as you realize it, you go, oh, of course I don't have to take your hand off again. But automatically, the old conditioning sneaks up and you don't even realize, and next thing you're doing it again. So
Yep.
that's how it works in real life. It'll be off and on, off and on, off and on until one day you go, you know what, it's been a fair while since I was white knuckled about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's been really kind of nice to notice it, because I'll notice if I'm really in distress, then I'm able to kind of reflect on, well, what's going on that is causing that? And it's been pretty clear. Oh, because I'm trying to manage something that really isn't happening right now, and I'm trying to keep myself safe. And so now I'm feeling anxious. So like I'll just feel all that and go, yep, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, it'll probably pass at some point, and
Yep. Yeah.
then then I feel again back in the flow and going, okay, well, this is where we are today.
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of wonder, a story pops up here that, you know, women, wives and mothers have have they spend a lot of their life organising and planning and doing that kind of stuff. So they're well and truly, hubby, he just goes to work and does his job and comes home, and all of that kind of stuff is pretty automatic. But she's there, got to work out whether the kids have got clean clothes and whether they got lunches to go to school, and there's just no end to the details involved. So she gets way, way more conditioning, and she's had it going since her mother was teaching her how to be a wife and a mother when she was 4 years old. It's a big thing, I reckon. Anyway, that's a story that popped up here. Mm.
Yeah, I think that's true. That I'm way more into trying to take care of things, and my husband's like, that's not, I'm just doing this one thing right now.
Mm. Yeah, I used to think a long time ago, I don't know how far back, but way, way back, I used to think, oh, I'd hate to be a woman. You know, it's, it's so easy to be a man compared to being a woman, I guess, you know, with all of that stuff. Anyway, and then she's got to go through her periods all of her life. That's even worse. So there you go. That's another one I don't have to worry about, except vicariously, of course. Yeah. Oh, no, you guys have got it tough, that's for sure.
Just different.
Mm, mm. Well, thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
You can feel your eyes staring at me, Vince.
Yep, yep. I was. My mind was saying, Dennis, come on, you do it.
Good morning, everybody, by the way.
Mm,
I was just out enjoying the sun. We're having a nice sunny day here today.
yeah.
And we're really curious as to what Phoebe's drawing. You're
You're
on
muted,
mute,
Phoebe.
Phoebe.
Yeah. You're muted, Phoebe.
I said, Dennis, I'm drawing pictures of you. I'm just practicing drawing from my.
I hope you're putting horns on him.
Nah.
Mm. And I see Michelle has her camera on. If I remember correctly, Michelle's camera used to always be off, unless I'm misremembering.
Well, you haven't been here for a while.
Yeah. I'd either listen to them or listen to them afterwards, usually. Um, yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. I'm even curious as to what I will say. I think I'm just more and more accepting myself lately. That's the thing. Accepting who I am, where I am, how I am. And that sort of recognition that this could all be over in a minute, in a week. And just to be here is, if you can get into that moment of that space, is where it's at. And to kind of spring to life from there and just enjoy whatever it is you're doing, whether it's having a conversation with somebody or winding someone up or working in the garden, that I won't ever find it in the next moment. It's this moment.
Right, yes. And that's happening without effort being applied.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's effort to do the opposite.
Yeah, well done.
and just trying to meet each moment, or meeting each moment and what comes up as a sort of, okay, so this is here. What's the response that wants to come? And I'll even figure out, like I'll even find myself arguing with people, but it's not real arguing. It's pretend arguing, or pushing their buttons and enjoying it, and watching them react, and then watching myself, and it's all just life force expressing. Like when Phoebe was raging earlier on, I was just laughing, thinking, oh, it's just her life force wanting to come out and express. It's coming out that way now. It's coming out a different way. But if you were sitting in a restaurant beside people who were effing and blinded like that, you'd be like, oh, yeah, they're expressing their energy. They have something to say. They're not muted and quiet and, you know, keeping it civil and respectable and all this shite that, you know, the suppressed person does.
So the way you tell this sounds like you're really in your perception is from experience.
That I'm not really understanding that, not landing anywhere. I suppose I'm always perceiving. Instead of trying to get out of the current moment some little way, it feels like now it's about trying to get fully into the moment.
Mm. Into the fullness of it.
Yeah, it's like a trick that you think, well, freedom will be in the next moment, or if I could just sort this problem out, the next 5 million problems I'm going to have, I'll, you know, but it's like you just have to sink into this moment, and then you can be surprised by how life will deal with it, and it's never wrong. And I went to one of David's. He does a session as well. There's different people in the original league, so I went to his. And he was kind of doing a meditation talk, and I don't know what. By the end of it, I thought I was nearly asleep, but it's like I disappeared. And when he stopped, I was like, "What the hell is going on?" But the real sense of, like, oh, I don't actually want to wake up. That's all bullshit. I just want a better dream. I just want a better this, better that, better whatever. Like waking up, I don't even know what it is. Like it's just I got really real with myself. It's like this is all horseshit. Like let's not pretend sitting here talking that we want to awaken and be free. We don't even know what any of that is. We just want a better dream in some form or shape. When I realized that, it was really kind of it was like the death of something. Like this is fucked.
Mm.
Anyway, that's kind of one thing last week that kind of came up.
Yeah, that's a good one. So have you recognised that being awake is just a better dream?
Yeah, it is another form of a desire. Yeah, I want this thing, I want this thing that everyone's talked about, that I've built up an idea about, but yet they're all saying it's not that. So, but I want that thing that it's not. We're just scraping along the cliff wall as we're falling down.
Hmm.
And I'm less looking for that better version of myself, or desiring that better version of myself.
That's a big one, that one.
It's probably it's probably a piece of that whole, as you enter your middle years, or people talk about midlife crises and things like that, but just as you get older, as you change, as you maybe aren't as energetic as you were, or whatever. And again, that might not last. It's just what's here now, but just to accept it and go, well, can you accept yourself now as you are? Yeah, it's interesting. Little ideas, little subtleties we still carry. Even if I go out with a friend and, you get dressed up and you're still subtly, in some subconscious way, thinking you're 20 and you're hoping a few people will look at you and, you still have it. And then to be able to let go of all that, go, Jesus, I'm married, I have 5 kids. Like, when is that stuff going to stop burdening me? And can I just be myself and sit there, have a bit of belly and laugh and enjoy life? It gets so crazy shite that's subtly attached to life. So as you get older, you're trying to be all your life instead of this moment. I was talking to my wife yesterday about I can remember when I was younger being freer and more in the moment and just happier. She's like, God, it's the opposite for me. I'm so much happier now and freer. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. How is it that she's that way and I can be this way sometimes? And what's going on there? What am I carrying that she's not carrying?
Yep.
So
Just an idea of how it should be.
yeah. So I think the team is acceptance.
That's what this whole thing is about.
And it's good to come on and see familiar faces and new faces and listen to what people are talking about and seeing what triggers and what doesn't trigger. And so there's nothing really burning as an issue to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just pleased to hear you say what you said. So I reckon I might go to bed. Nice short session. Just coming up to 11 p.m. here. What do you mean, no, Phoebe?
What I was saying was you're a trooper. It's like, I don't know that I would stay up till 11 for, that's really good of you. But in the background of your car, it looks like it's daylight. It doesn't look like it's nighttime.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's night time. I'm in the garage with the light on, that's why.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.